Hey, babe. Welcome to Boss Less, Babe More. This is your go-to podcast for burnout girlies ready to align their brand and business. I'm Grace, alignment coach and Akashic record reader.
And I'm Reka, designer and brand strategist. Together, we're here to share what it really takes to build a brand and business that feels aligned, supportive, and actually sustainable.
Get valuable insight from two recovering boss babes and a chance to sit in the hot seat so you can receive on-the-spot brand clarity or coaching from women who get it.
Not to mention, exclusive invites to our brand rebirth intensives and retreats.
So if you're ready to unboss a little, soften a lot, and build a life and brand that reflects something real,
we are overjoyed to welcome you to our wholesome, quirky, and wildly transformational corner of the internet.
Hello, my loves! Welcome back to this week's episode where we're going to be discussing balance in brand visuals. So Reka's gonna be our expert here today. She's gonna give us all the little details about brand design from the visual perspective. So, going into creating a brand, be that personal or otherwise, there's a visual element to it. Obviously, there's not just strategy, which of course strategy is important, but whenever we're talking about creating the logo or creating the visuals for a new brand, or whenever a brand needs rebranded, how do you come up with a logo in the first place?
It's such a fun question. And I think the reason I will forever be a designer is because even though the process becomes a little bit more streamlined and clear in my head over time, and I just get better with the tools and I get better at reading the clients or knowing what to ask, it's always an adventure. So for me, the way I like to think about this is, of course, like you said, strategy, what's behind the look and the idea of where we are headed. First and foremost, a few key elements that I need to know is obviously what is the name of your business? Will it have some sort of tagline or submark or something underneath that I need to accommodate for that is maybe like 3 words? Because that can actually like really matter how long or short something or stacked it has to be. And then is there some sort of visual that we're trying to convey? Because oftentimes somebody will say, we'll not go into all of the nuances, but if you think about there's difference of a mark just has a visual element, or the mark is just the word typed out like FedEx, those are just letters, but inside that there's a fun shape. So there are all these different variations and solutions, but ultimately I always start with what are the client's values or their archetype, what's kind of the vibe we are going for, and then what is something that they want to convey. So I'm going to bring up Boss Less Babe More for most of these examples today when we're talking about this, because you guys can easily see our logo and go from there. It was really, really important for us to be very clear that it is a femme-centric operation all around. So I knew immediately, without knowing what the letter shapes were going to look like or where we were headed, that a boob or a vagina should be part of it. Preferably both. But that was like, if you look at that mark, you immediately know they're not fucking around. They're bold. If a dude looks at it, they're like, oh, funny. And then they move on, right? Like our people will immediately get it. So sometimes a client will say, I want, a horse in that, does it make sense? Can it be part of a letter shape? Then I start sketching and start working on it. But ultimately, it always has to go back to the original value set of what we are trying to communicate. So the boob and the vagina works for our brand, but, it wouldn't necessarily work for a cancer center. They have to do with those body parts, right? But we're not trying to be cheeky in that sense. It's a really serious business. People are going through really traumatic experiences. So is a boob always appropriate? No. But it's something that goes back to what are we trying to communicate. So I always start with sketching, and I always, always, always start with black and white. And then because I absolutely adore creating custom lettering and custom fonts. It's something that I think makes my designs pretty unique, that no two logos are ever the same, but if you're using actual fonts from your computer, it is eventually it can get kind of like, you can alter it in one way or another, but if you're drawing it from your hand, it's going to be so much more unique than anything AI can generate for you. So I personally really enjoy bringing that element into it. So sketching has to be the first one, even though I'm not really a big artist or don't necessarily create final sketches on paper. The rough idea always has to start that way.
So you start on paper and then move it into your digital editing processing.
I do, and actually now that I think about it, I would say now it's 50-50. I'll start on paper and then pretty quickly I'll hop into my iPad. If I'm really truly honest with myself, I'll hop into the iPad and then I use the app Procreate, and then in the app I have quite a lot of layering, deleting, all sorts of fun options, colors and stuff, where you can get a pretty rough idea of how it will look before I go into the computer.
It is so fascinating watching you do that as well. Like I mean, she pulls apart all of the different little elements and can just like, oh, we don't want that. Okay, what if I change this here? And I mean, it's just really incredible how you do the things. I mean, it is so far outside of my skill set. So it's magic, it's sorcery to me, but like to you, you're just like, oh, and this makes sense, and oh, this is the logical placement for this, and just like seeing you and your element is really, really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, it's I've been given this compliment, and I'm sure that if you have a designer friend in your life, watching them work, people are like, this is just so fascinating. I don't even know what you're doing. It's like I am making hundreds of decisions in my head, like that's too big, that's too narrow, that's too tall, that's too dark, that's too whatever, like continuously trusting my eye that something looks better than something else.
That's amazing. It's a skill. It is an intense skill.
Yeah.
It is so cool watching you work with all of your design programs and all the layers and all of the logic and things that go into you creating a logo. And in the past, you've talked about how typically you'll make two marks for people. You'll make the one that a client you think they'll want, but also then you make one that it's more like, oh, I think that they're actually going to need this as their brand really develops into what it's meant to be. Yeah. So can you share a little bit about how does that work, where you kind of conceptualize these two very different marks for a singular client, a singular brand?
Well, that's actually a very, very good question. When somebody comes to me and wants a rebrand, I would say mostly I rebrand people. There are some businesses that are starting up that I create the very first mark for, but I would say a lot of my work is rebrand. And I think the trickiest part of that is that you do not know who you are until this process starts to unfold. So when I present you with a logo, you're still probably so in love with either an idea of yourself or something that has started with you 5, 10, 15 years ago. So the process of creating two marks, I found that to be the best of both worlds. Here's something that you think you are, and then here's something that I think you are. And ultimately, you hire me for my expertise and my experience and me being the outside observer. So I would say 80% of the time we go that direction. But I recently had a client and she didn't. She went with her look, which was fine and perfectly beautiful, but it was pushing her too far. And she's like, I just don't think I'm that. And so if you do enough introspection, you don't have to pick my option. It doesn't matter. And with Bossless Babe More, it was pretty clear that I knew we were going in that direction. I think, I'm not even sure if we had two options. I think it was iterations of the custom lettering, but I don't even think we had two marks for us, because I just knew this was going to be the direction. I knew that because of the hands-on experience, it would be something hand-lettered. I knew that it would need to have some sort of femme-centric element, and then knowing you, there was no option of just a black and white.
There has to be color.
Black and white logo. Even though that's how you want to start, you want your letter shapes to make sense, black and white, because a lot of times how you will print it, or printing it on a funky background or on top of a photo, or as you start thinking of like posters or visuals or online, eventually everybody will ask, can you do the clear, like the PNG stuff, and just like white? So you can create all of those beautiful colors, and then, you know, somebody will print in a publication that is just black and white, and then what are you going to do? So it's important to start with black and white. But I think the options and that process is, it's kind of a exercise in trust with your clients. Like, it was easier to design for ourselves because, one, I knew kind of where I was heading. Two, you had absolute full trust in me, knowing that this is my zone of genius. So we're kind of a unicorn in that sense, and it was easier to design for us. But ultimately, it's this trust element of, how do I get you to see where you will need to be 5-10 years from now? How do we create a mark that has legs way down the road that you cannot even see yourself as yet? Right? You have these desires to make more money, or have more clients, or bring in this thing, or open a new arm of this, and this. But the longevity, I think, especially if you're not a visual person, is so hard to see. So when you're faced with a mark that you did not expect, it's like, oh, I have no idea if this is me. Like this, right? So even if the mark is correct or right, it can kind of be a challenge to beat it up, or to accept it, or, you know, even have feedback. I think oftentimes I find clients have a really hard time having proper feedback. Like, but do you like the colors? You know, I really have to like ask extremely elementary questions. Like, well, I just don't like it. Well, what do you not like about it, right? Is it the overall shape? Is it that it has a boob and a vagina in it? Is it the colors? Is it that it's hand drawn? Is it the height of the text, the width of it, so
Whenever you whip out those two different designs per client, then whenever you present those, do people typically immediately feel a gravitational pull towards one or the other, or is that something that they need to sit with or feel into a little bit more before they can really commit to a mark?
Very, very good question. It's a mixed bag. I think oftentimes, if the mark is correct and right, and I've done the proper work and sat with it enough and tweaked it enough, they'll gravitate towards the mark immediately. They're like, that's the one. Or they're like, you know, I don't love the red, but that's it. Or that blue is a little too powder blue or something. Every now and then I'll get somebody to think about it. And I think it's mostly because I have challenged them to something and they like where it could go. They're just not quite ready to commit, but they can see that there's value in that extra option or the tweak that I did. So it's 50-50, but oftentimes, because a mark has to be so communicative and clear right away, if you have to sit with it for too long, something is not right, right? Like, it has to have, like, I think of logos as this like gut instinct of, that's who I am. That makes sense. Quick. And then the amount of money and energy and time we spend on creating it is also the same amount of, like, I need you to exit and like move on. Know if this mark and brand is for you or not for you, and on you go. Because if you're sitting with it too long, then you're kind of getting lost in the sauce versus experiencing the brand. So it's like, it's really important to have a good logo, and then it doesn't matter at all at the same time, you know, because it's like, you just got it. It was basically a pre-sort. Is this for me? Not for me? On we go.
So it's more important that there is a balance and a harmony between the logo, the strategy, and the entrepreneur herself than for all of the lost in the sauce energy between like picking between marks. It's like, is this you? Is this a true reflection? Is it in alignment, and is it balanced?
Yeah, absolutely. And it can come from a lot of different places. Like, if you know, again, Boss Less Babe More, we take ourselves seriously, but we don't take ourselves too seriously. So it's very clear that we need to anchor it with some black. and have that grounding moment, and then have, I believe we have 4 neon, like, you can't really print neon the same way just on your computer, but neon like super bright colors that's in alignment. The shape in and of itself is in alignment. Actually, it's a really long word, so that was one really fun challenge with this. We, I think, even talked about it in previous episode of what it would be like to abbreviate it, because it's such a long brand name. But how does that look like? I think it's only on our website, maybe, that it's completely horizontal.
Elongated, yes.
But most of the time when we have that mark, it is just stacked, right? So I'm kind of meandering from your question, but it is really important to align with that strategy and know, but when it is right, this kind of just sounds sort of boo-boo, but when it is in alignment, you know right away. Like, it just feels really good to look at it. It's pleasing to the eye. It's communicating the colors and that essence of like, oh, this is a funky brand. Oh, this is a really serious brand. Oh, this is kind of a cheeky brand. Oh, this is for little girls. Oh, this is for, conservative readership, whatever the scenario is. The alignment actually is already present in the visuals. So it's just kind of smooth sailing from there.
Yeah, that makes sense. And whenever I look at our brand, feel into our brand, I mean, it looks good in black and white. It looks great in color. I mean, it looks great if it's that horizontal elongated shape. It looks great if it's stacked. So I feel like you really took the time to make it all make sense. Also, Boss Less is smaller than the Babe More. So it's like, that should be smaller than, right? Because we're trying to boss less and then babe more, like make the babing bigger, right?
Right.
So like it's in these tiny little details that you're really almost it is a reflection of the strategy or of the whole intention of the brand, like that it's all incorporated into that mark.
Absolutely. So these are really basic design principles if you think about it, if you break it down, like what is the most important element, what letter shape or what word needs to be the largest, if you think about a company's name, what is the thing that we are trying to it has to be part of it, but we don't specifically have a tagline because our logo and wordmark is basically a tagline. But if you have some sort of descriptor underneath, is that something that we can lose over time and not lose the integrity of the mark, right? Is this something where we need to introduce like a new fitness equipment company, and then that can be taken away because people start learning the word X, Y, and Z. So if you start thinking about that, what is the relationship between letters? Are we trying to be really relaxed and like elongate the letters with a lot of spacing between it? Are we trying to be really tight? Are we trying to take up a lot of space because we are tall, we are big, we are bold? If you look at the letters on ours, Babe More, not only it is bigger than Boss Less is the two words are next to each other, but the Babe and the More are on top of each other. So it's like we are all sorts of like juicy, taking up all this space, and we are voluptuous and big. Yeah. So it made a lot of sense to put the shapes inside of there and be like, okay, we're claiming this. We are claiming more boobs and more vagina and more babing.
Absolutely. And overall, just like, I know that our logo is correct, but as you're talking about this, it's just like reiterating this is absolutely the mark for our brand. So
yeah.
Thanks for doing such an amazing job.
You're welcome.
And I'm curious, what does it mean to have balance in a brand overall?
So overall, we've been mentioning this a little bit. It is definitely how it ties back to the strategy and to the initial intent. So if our brand wasn't content for women, a lot of it wouldn't make sense as this mark. It could be beautiful, it could be colorful, it could have all these extra things behind it, but like I said, it would not work for a cancer center. Like eventually you cannot get too complicated and too crazy with stuff, because at the end of the day, not only it's a mark that just technically has to exist, you know, as a half-inch by half-inch tiny thing on a business card or whatever. Like there's technical limits to it. Eventually, if people don't get it, you over-designed it. So I like to think of this as the difference between art and design. Art can be this completely subjective whatever thing, but design at the end of the day is like solving a problem. If you made this beautiful chair and you can't fucking sit on it because it's so uncomfortable, then you didn't design a good chair. You just designed a piece of art that you're gonna like frame or put on the wall or something because you don't want to sit on it.
What a good distinction. Yeah.
So that's like, it's so much the same with logos. Like you can be the most amazing artist and create this like beautiful thing. And then if I can't read it, or you can't make it small, or I can't read it far away on a sign, like you actually failed at designing. So I oftentimes say like, oh, I'm not really an artist. I'm definitely not an artist. I'm a designer. I solve problems, which is I'm trying to distinguish you as a brand from so-and-so as a brand. And that will be through the shapes, through the colors, through the stacking of things, through whatever else.
Wow. Yeah. And how can a logo or brand achieve that balance specifically? Like you are obviously the one doing a lot of the problem solving, but it is still a conjoined effort between you and your client.
Yeah, so I guess the first question is, you know, people come to me to rebrand, but I like to ask about their business of what we're trying to solve for, because it's actually happening quite a lot if you guys are paying attention to it. But the Crackle Barrel logo getting redesigned,
so
like
much.
so dramatic. We should have an episode on that. But Joann's Fabric redesigned their logo. I'm blanking on the other one. I was thinking about this the other day. Somebody had a post about this, but basically they were trying to reach younger audiences, and almost immediately, or maybe not immediately, I don't know the exact timeline, but they went out of business. It's basically like it was too late to try to communicate all of this brand essence just by changing the mark, because you either upset the current climate or the current clientele rather, and failed to reach the new one, or just went so boring and bland to try to just patch something up that was a deeper rooted business issue. That, to me, to specifically really reach that like balance in the visual, I have to know, like, okay, maybe you have outgrown your target audience, but then let's talk about what that new one is, or how you're easing into that, or even just the brand reveal can make such a difference. Not just like, ta-da, here's the new logo, but like, this was the story behind it. And I think oftentimes these really big brand rebrands, you just see the end result. You don't know the thousand. I mean, I didn't particularly love the new Crackle Barrel logo redesign, but I understood what it was trying to go for. It does look like a really outdated logo. If you zoom in, like that shit looks pixelated, and it's like it's not a great mark, but it's so embedded in people's brains that you can't immediately throw everything out the window, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to create that balance, you have to talk about what are the initial goals that you want to reach with that business, reach a different target audience, reach more people, reach more women, reach more men, and then really think about the specifics of how that translates, right? Like back to Boss Less Babe More. Those fun colors and the shapes immediately identify us. Like there's no question of who our people are. So,
and I feel like there's a timeless element to it as well, just because it's colors that have always been more associated with the feminine.
Mm-hmm.
And then boobs and pussies will never go out of style for women.
Yeah. And it creates that immediate like sense of like belonging, may not even be the right word, but like that sense of connection. Like, oh, I got it. These are my people, or this is my thing, or ooh, I'm curious, or what are they doing? Like it's just that balance is achieved by actually talking to the right people immediately, which I think oftentimes it's like, well, I want more money, or I want more clients, or then I just reach out to more. But really, if you're talking to the void, so many of those people will be unqualified leads, or clients who will not be returning clients because they weren't the right clients to begin with, right? Mm-hmm. So if the mark is doing its job and it's balanced, it's going to speak to your people immediately, and only to your people. So it becomes, so that's why some of these
It's
modern
like a filter.
it's exactly, it's like a filter. So it's the Cracker Barrel logo is like such a good example of like, am I supposed to go there because it's like a younger audience? Is this my, like, I did not like it, so I could not connect with it. So therefore it's like, I don't, okay. So I'm reading the little description of like, okay, we're trying to bring a newer audience. I'm like, I don't know if you went too blend, you know, like what is the personality where I'm like, you know, I'm not super into this, but when I'm on the road and having a grand time driving down whatever highway and I see that logo, it's like, we're going to stop there because that's going to be a fun treat, even though it's not necessarily my type of eating or place or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So,
Because they're also changing the ambiance, like the interior
yeah,
decorating, because they've, in the past, had warehouses of all those like old antique things,
Yeah.
and that would be what they would decorate
Right.
with. But now I think they're trying to get rid of a lot of that like cluttery, junky, old
Yeah.
timey.
Which is a
Stuff.
disservice to like, I'm not loving that. Like, I don't want cluttery junk in my house, but that doesn't mean that I couldn't enjoy a place. So I go into it, I'm like, wow, this is maximalist and this is fun to eat here and stay here. And then thank you, I'm moving on.
Yeah.
Right. So it's, balance can be achieved in a lot of ways in just the actual design elements, but balance in like the overall how it's getting delivered or how it's getting used, right? Like we say the logo matters and it doesn't matter. It matters what that ambiance is. It matters what that website reads like. It matters, you know, this is so specific to our website, but if you guys have been to our website, the illustrations, we actually handpick someone from overseas totally randomly and accidentally because her style of artwork, we're like, this is our person.
Yeah.
And ended up getting a contract with her for all of the illustrations. Never in a million years would I have thought that was going to be the direction, but it's like once we found that our people will appreciate this artistic style, this kind of hand-drawn elements, this kind of like liberal femme vibe of like just the essence of a woman. I mean, so many of the illustrations online I super love, but especially that last woman, that lady's in that flower cup like sitting, I'm just like,
Yeah.
she's fucking hardcore babying. Like I see that and I see myself and I see the people that I want to talk to, right? So that's balance of like knowing what you're offering beyond the mark.
Absolutely. How cool. And can you talk a little bit more about the visual elements, maybe from the perspective of that symbolism, maybe masculine, feminine energy, trendiness versus timelessness, and the emotional connection and magnetism of a brand?
Absolutely. So masculine, feminine, it's not as prevalent. Well, I guess the decision to not be so balanced for Boss Less Babe More was a very conscious choice, right? But oftentimes the clients I work with or the products they build or the spaces they create, they do want men and women to enjoy it. So that actually is a pretty delicate balance. Most of the time I work with women who are serving women. So I don't have to get like too nitty gritty into the masculinity. But if you think about an overly girly thing, think of our logo.
Like,
You have
I
the
think
bobos
of
and the vagina.
curves and like softer edges.
Absolutely.
And
Like the hand drawn elements, everything that's happening in Boss Less Babe More is very, very feminine. And I knew that that was going to be entirely way too much. That, all of the shapes, all of the curves, all of the bubbliness, it needed to, even the boldness of it, I would still consider more feminine than masculine. So I knew that it needed to be pulled back with the black. Like our anchoring color will always be the black in that sense. And that is by design and by choice, even though I still think it's a more feminine mark and a more voluptuous, like soft, cuddly kind of aesthetic. But it always has to balance that because everything in life has to balance that, right? Like the bossing has to balance the babying and vice versa. We've talked about this in cyclical living, and you have all of your phases and all of the specifics, but it will come down to who is your target audience. And if there are dudes that want to interact with a certain brand, you cannot be all flowy, feminine, hand-drawn type, and I can make the most beautiful mark. A guy will not pick up that product, right? They're not
Yeah.
going to look at it the same way. If it's just all the soft pastels, like, they may pick it up for their wife or their partners or something, or their kids, but not necessarily for themselves. So it always has to have a little bit of that balance, for sure. And then I think the symbolism is just really, can you in a clever way hide something about your business or your ethos in those letter marks that just make it fun? So again, the boobs and vaginas for us, the little arrow in FedEx, like small things that may not necessarily mean a very specific emblem, but it's somehow part of your mark. Ignite Yoga, for example, the T is a plus mark because we are saying, and it has a box around it, but it breaks out of the box. So it's like, we are this and, right? Like more expanding, and here's this container, but you also exist outside of that container. So what are these like kind of conceptual pieces that if you get it, great. If you don't get it, it still makes sense, but there's something about that pulls you in where you're like, why is there a boob and a vagina in here? What is this thing? Oh, it's so colorful. I find that intriguing. Like pulling people in. That's when the mark is good. Because if it's just a really simple, not that there's anything wrong with simple, I like simplicity and I like minimalism, but if it's a little too bare bone and basic, it almost creates a trendiness around that. Like right now, so much of the minimalist modern stuff, which I personally adore, it's going to be dated in 5 to 10 years. So I try to, when I talk to clients, I try to ask what it is that they want, and then when we look at mood boards and visual inspiration, I try to make sure that there's enough layers or extra elements in there that makes the mark interesting for the long run versus, okay, we're just going to take a font and type something out and then that's what that is, right? Like it has to have something more in there because otherwise it will be kind of boring in no time, and there's no timelessness to it.
So, whenever you are designing a logo specifically, obviously you have all of these elements and factors in mind that you're creating a logical solution for, right? And you're juggling all of these gazillion puzzle pieces and creating this ultimate image out of it. How do you know when it's done? Like,
Such
like
a good question.
I would be, if I were in your shoes, I would feel like, I don't know, just one more little tweak here. And I don't think I would know when to put it down. And so I wonder do you also experience that? Do your clients also kind of, well, what if we tweak this one last thing? And it just kind of turns into this endless tweaking project? Or like, how do you know it's done? How do you know it's done?
It's such a good question. And if I had a super clear-cut answer, I would tell you. But I would say there are a couple of factors. One, this is why it's nice to have a timeline. It just has to be done. But as I was saying, this art versus design, if it solves the problem, if it communicates that this is a podcast brand and this is two women talking. The other day I did think of the other name that we had for us.
Oh, what was it? Remind me.
Two girls and a mic.
Oh, two girls, one mic.
Or two girls, one mic. And we were trying to go down a different sort of
I do remember that.
route. It's like, oh my gosh. It's
We were
good
gonna have an OnlyFans too, weren't we?
we're gonna go a little bit different direction with that one. Probably would have made more money by now. But yeah. So when is it done? So it's such a good question because ultimately, yes, you can tweak everything forever. Eventually, there's just going to be a timeline. There's going to be a deadline. There's going to be something that says, okay, this mark is done. I personally like to, well, firstly, when I say that I present you with two logos, that does not mean that the back end, my art boards, does not have 5 to 6. I am extremely lucky and fortunate to while I'm a freelance designer and work on my own, I have some really fucking talented people in my corner that I either worked with or worked under or were my art directors. And I can send something to them and be like, is this shit? Is this something? Am I making sense? If I send this to you, what does it? I often like to do this, like, here's the thing. What do you see, right? Like, instead of trying to explain the whole brief ahead of time, see if they get it. So then they kind of have this outside perspective of, I don't know what I'm looking at, but now I'm like, oh, this is a bakery. Oh, this is a gym. This is okay, makes sense. So I like to call on people, and then obviously the better designers and better art directors you surround yourself with, the more they're gonna say those little tweaks before the client would kind of get to that. So I would say get yourself a design bestie that can look at something. I also think that putting something in front of a client and say, I like to do the 3 rounds of revisions. Like, here's the 2 options, 3 rounds of revision. Either option can have 3 sets of changes, or you can be like, you know what, I really like A, so let's just go with that, but what about this color or that? And oftentimes I like to keep versions of it, like, okay, this was the original, this is how we tweaked it, does this make sense? Like, sometimes we'll go back to the original, like, you know what, I just have this idea, would it make sense if, and then we tweak it that way, and it's like, actually no, that didn't make sense. Like, once they see a mark, they kind of have this idea of where it can go next, which is really kind of cool, because then it becomes collaborative, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But it's, I would say, I know when it's done. So not only because I have selected 2 of my favorites or what made most sense, but oftentimes the reason why I ask for the timelines that I ask for with clients is because I want to close that file, not look at it at all whatsoever, reopen it a week later, which is a luxury, right? To say, huh, I really like this still. Or like, oh my God, what was I thinking? That letter K is like so out of proportion. But you don't see that until you walk away from it.
Yeah, fresh eyes.
Fresh eyes, for sure. So I think personally, that is the best indicator for me. Like, if I open it up a couple of days with a set of fresh eyes, a couple of days away from designing it, I will have a pretty good idea. Like, you know what, it's not there yet. And it happened with Bossless Babe More. Like, I had other iterations. I think I've showed it to you, and it's like, it's the right path. I know where we're going. It's not there yet. And it was probably another 10, 15 hours of work that I put into it afterwards. And it didn't seem like that much of a difference, but I'm like, what do you even think? And I think you were delighted at all iterations because you're good like that. But it was like, something else is missing. I also think that over time, I've been doing this for 15 years, you know, when a logo is well done, when it feels balanced, that's like years and years of making something where you're like, okay, this feels good, you know?
Yeah.
It's like an outfit. You start layering. It's like, now I put on the shoes and I'm putting on the lipstick and the outfit is complete. So some of it is just experience that's like really, really hard to tell. You just know because you've done it so many times.
That makes a lot of sense. And it seems like such a process as well, how you're kind of going back and forth, getting that feedback from the client. And I would love it if you could just share a little bit about how that process works with our brand rebirth intensives, where, you know, they're coming into a 3-day container with us. They're getting soul aligned strategy. They're getting visuals. They're getting all of this back end business support. But then after they leave, you know, a few weeks afterwards, right, they have a follow-up with you to get their official visuals. And I'm curious, how does that process work in the 3-day intensive? Would you just share with our listeners about what that process would look like?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking that. So this is a really unique offering that I think we're just bringing to the table, period, as an Akashic record reader and a brand designer. I just think I'm so glad I found you and that we are here on this journey together, because our work overlaps so effortlessly and so beautifully. But what we have created, which some of you guys may or may not know, but what we have created with the Brand Rebirth Intensive is having you here in person, getting into the nitty gritty. Imagine like 3 days of bossing and babying in all the healthiest ways. Like, I would love to put myself through this process again if I was not the actual brand designer of it, right? Like, well, and in some ways we did, right? Like, I've designed for you, you have read for me.
Yeah.
But it's this juicy, like, strategy, alignment. Who are you? What are you? What are you trying to accomplish? What is the business trying to accomplish kind of conversation that I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast is like, what are the values? What are the things, right? Is the mark going to be a duck or is it going to be a boob? Is it going to be this or is it going to be that? When we start digging into the 3 days and the rebirth of your brand, we start getting into these specific points of what the values are, what the target audience is. So now, without you even really knowing, I'm already taking mental notes of this makes sense, this doesn't make sense. You may mention something that's like, scarves are my thing. And then it's just going to be some sort of flowy element in there that makes sense. That's like your essence in like a really silly kind of small way that eventually starts feeding into the brand. Exactly. And so after the brand rebirth, because it would be close to impossible, maybe somebody can design a brand in 3 days. I don't feel good attaching my name to something so quick and fast. But after the 3 days, when you exit the container, not only are you going to go home with like a lot of feel good energy of like your brand is really moving towards something, you will have an actual sit down conversation with me. However, we set that up 2 weeks after, that is giving you here are the 2 options. So the idea is that during the brand rebirth intensive, we talk about a lot of strategy, but I fully intend to talk to you about the mood boards. I intend to talk to you about color, all sorts of stuff that is not going to give you the final look just yet, but you already will see where we are headed. And I will definitely be able to sit down at the computer and start working without needing to ask any other questions, because I know exactly what your archetype is. I know exactly what your values are. I know exactly what kind of target audience you're trying to reach. So all of those things that are usually like a bunch of emails, a bunch of meetings, like pulling kind of teeth, just like, give me this information. I promise this doesn't seem important, but it will be. In the 3 day container that you sit here with us is just gonna kind of bubble up to the surface, whether it's like a fun dinner conversation or morning movement or whatever, some of these things, because we have that kind of intimacy of like 3 days back to back with each other. A lot of your essence will percolate to the top. A lot of these like fun elements will percolate to the top. So when I go into my little cave and design the mark, it's not really in such a silo and it's not really so disconnected from who you are or what your brand is. I'll be able to come back up and say, I'm pretty sure this is your brand. And most likely you will have like the gut reaction to A or B, because you have actually been part of it. You have been able to see how the threads are going to connect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very intimate process in the brand rebirth intensives. Mm-hmm. And on my end as well, with the Akashic Records alignment work, all of that, we're able to look at that in the records. Like, what typeface is going to be the best? What color schemes are going to be the best? Like, how many pages do you actually need on your website? All of these different elements. So, like, the way that, again, that you said, like, our work really overlaps and works so beautifully together. I mean, so much fun, first of all, and 2, leads to this experience of a brand that really is a true reflection of its creator.
And honestly, a thing that takes time and energy, an investment and thought and presence. But after that, it's done. I think most of the time when clients find me, not only they are spinning their wheels, I'm the last resort, they are just like super lost. There's this level of unsettledness in them that I oftentimes like put the period on the paper for them. Like, this is it. Now you literally just gotta use the same fucking mark over and over again until you're like so tired of it. And that's when maybe people start noticing your mark, like you're done, right? Versus like, I'm tweaking this, I'm doing that, I'm changing my colors. Don't do any of that. Use this forever and ever and ever and ever, and then if you don't like it in 10 years, we'll redo it, you know? And that sort of, it's not even satisfaction, it's not even the right word. That sort of like you feel settled and confident and aligned, I don't really know if you can put the perfect time frame and like value on it, because you can't just go and do your business, because the rest we have figured out for you. We have checked for you, we have aligned for you. Like, you're set, you're done.
And this way, it really gives you longevity in your brand that maybe you wouldn't have had otherwise.
Absolutely. Or you would have guessed, like, all right, well, this is, somebody made me a logo. Okay, cool. Now, is this the right thing? Who are the people I'm talking to? Like, I have a lot of beautiful, wonderful designer friends. They don't talk about strategy. They don't talk about this kind of, they may ask on a questionnaire, like, who is your target audience? Blah, blah, blah. But there's no rapport back and forth of like, well, if it's a younger audience, then we definitely need to consider this kind of visual aesthetic, or this kind of mark, or this kind of marketing, or like, it just doesn't often come up, because then you just pass them off to the marketing director, or you just pass them on to some sort of business coach, or like, you get all of that here in 3 days time, plus our follow-ups.
Yeah. So I mean, complete branding within a month, so that process is not being dragged out, because I think that happens a lot too, where you know, things can be tweaked for months and months and months, and then nothing is actually solidified and cemented, and then you can't run with your brand.
Like, we literally pluck you away from everything in your, you know, I mean, if we would take their cell phones away, probably. You probably still need it for notes and things.
You're unplugged, honey.
Yeah, but it's truly like, do not be in your regular environment, because you're not going to have the same amount of time for homework. It's life, and you're supposed to have that, right? And people rebrand successfully regardless. But I think what we're trying to offer is like, no, let's get it done right. Let's get it done well. Let's get it done in a concise amount of time, with the most energetic support, with the best food. I mean, Grace's Magic Cooler proved again today how incredible she is. Like, it is just all of the supportive ways for you to be able to have the space and time to sit and think about yourself, your business, where you're headed, what the fuck you're doing next, without any kind of distraction. And that's, I mean, I don't get this kind of time and energy all the time to myself.
Right?
Like, I gotta schedule myself into my own damn calendar, right? So I think it's pretty magical of us to offer this. Like,
yeah.
I'm very proud of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Same. Super stoked. If you are feeling excited about this, if you feel like, you know what, I think that it might be time for my brand to have a little bit of a facelift, or even if you're just unsure and you want to run it by us, you can go to our website. It's bosslessbabemore.com. Go check out the Brand Rebirth Intensive, and if it feels like it's maybe a fit for you, you can fill out our intake form to have a consultation with us. And this is the best way for us to have our eyes on your brand and be able to see, okay, is this actually in alignment to who you are and where you're going? And if it's not, we're also really honest about, okay, honey, this is just not going to be working for the long run. And it's not your fault, but it's outside of your wheelhouse to be branding yourself. And for most of us, you know, if you're not a designer by trade, then branding yourself is probably not going to be very effective.
Yeah. And
so if you're feeling like, you know what, I'm just not really sure if I have brand clarity, or if it's actually a true reflection of what I am and what I'm creating, then go ahead and fill out that intake form so that we can get connected and really be able to sit with you, hold you in a non-judgmental container. Because I know it's also scary.
Yeah.
It's scary being like, I think my brand is shit. I'm
not gonna tell you your logo sucks. It's okay. And also, I think the hour-long conversation is to be honest about your brand and where you're headed, and if we can work together, because I think oftentimes these calls are like pressuring people into working with you and doing something. Like, if it's not the right fit, we are not going to string you along.
No.
Like, this is an honest hour-long conversation about where you are, where you're headed, and we'll give you our honest opinion on what are the best next steps for you.
And if that's working with us, cool. And if it's not, amazing.
Yeah.
Like, we will hopefully be able to point you in the direction that you need
Yep.
to go if it is not working with us.
Absolutely. Alignment is essential for us too. So the point is, there's nothing to lose.
Exactly. So if that feels inspiring, we would love to talk to you. Come
Yes.
hang with us for an hour.
Yes.
All of our consultations are done over Zoom. We are attaching that intake form in the description. So go ahead and fill it out and connect with us. And until then,
Don't forget
to boss less, babe more.